As you all are aware, SAFE Research and Development Foundation is a TUT agency under the ITCN capacity building program, and they are developing modules to train the government officials. They have developed 4 modules under the orientation level of course, and the TUT is being organized to train the trainers on these modules. Today, the training will be held on module 1, that is named as infant, toddler, caregiver, and their needs. I would like to request all the training agencies to actively participate in the training program. I will not take much time and like to hand over the session to CRDF team. So before that, Ajay sir would like to say something.
Just a warm welcome to everyone. Look forward to the presentation and delivery of training by the CRDF team. Thanks, KK, and hope everyone enjoys this session.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Now it's over to CRDF team.
KK and Ajay, thank you so much. Purvi Chadwa is the key point person today. She will be the one who will be running this particular session. So Purvi, if you can get started and take it away, that will be great.
So good afternoon, everyone. As you know, my name is Purvi. I am an architect, urban designer, and I am delivering this session today from the CRDF team. This is the first module in the orientation course, as you are aware. And the capacity building program for the agencies the government officials through the agencies present today is the joint initiative by NIUA and BVLF. Their intends to build capacity of government officials in formulating young children and caregiver-centric city policies, also aligned programs and interventions in the cities in India, and it is based majorly on the Urban 95 philosophy. So CRDF is supporting NIUA in developing the training modules and training the trainers, that is currently all the identified agencies, who will in turn deliver the training to the government officials. So the training is organized at 3 levels: orientation modules, operational modules, and implementation modules. And the presentation that follows will give more details on the content of the first module. So the objective of the orientation course on infant, toddler, caregiver neighborhood is to establish the need for better understanding for the kind of environment that a small child, a young child, and the caregiver need. And we qualify that environment as the neighborhood, the immediate environment where the infants, toddlers, and caregivers live. And this is training that will be the courses that will be extended for the urban local body officials. So these modules have been the two-fold delivery method. Currently, when I am discussing the module, I am presenting the module. I am also talking about the delivery of the contents. So I am delivering the contents of the module, but also there are indications on methods that the trainers can use to engage with the audience. So typically, while training the city officials, the modules can be scheduled over 4 segments, wherein the first part could be engaging with the participants, and this can be done on Mentimeter and Zoom. Today also we will be using Mentimeter in between to have some engaging activities with all the participants. So I hope that participants are sort of convenient. There is a convenience in using the Mentimeter software, and we can also have the live interaction that can guide the later activities. So the scheduling can be done in 4 parts, whereby you sort of have an introduction, ice-breaking round. The delivery of the main contents could happen over roughly 75 minutes, as these modules are like roughly 90 minutes. So 60 to 75 minutes. And here there would be breaks in between, but also there could be skill quizzes, polls, and engaging activities and discussions with the participants. We have also inserted some of these activities in the module so that it can familiarize the trainers as well. And then there could be discussions at the end of the presentation on how, for example, for module 1, the discussion could be a prompted discussion using some kind of cards or something based on how the Indian cities are dealing with the gaps of providing this environment for the young children, or some such ideas. And we can end with the feedback from the participants. So this could be the structure of the presentation. Now, for the ease of delivery for the trainers, the slide deck has been supported with 3 key inputs. So first, many slides will have these kind of symbols which indicate the action or the kind of delivery for that particular slide. For example, the first symbol here says there's a key message or a definition. So that needs to be elaborated. The speaker could halt there. आप उनसे बात कर सकते हो, फीडबैक ले सकते हो कि ये समझ में आया कि नहीं, कहाँ पे इसका क्या मीनिंग है. अगेन दिस कुड गो इनटू लोकल लैंग्वेज. देन दूसरा एक ये जो तीसरा वाला सिंबल है, दैट इज आल्सो अबाउट एंगेजिंग विद द ऑडियंस. तो आप वहां पे रुक के, वहां पे जहाँ पे you can engage with the audience in a similar manner by asking them a short quiz or something. So these are also there. This is the first part to support the delivery. The second part is har ek slide ke niche we have put guiding notes. So these guiding notes are indicative notes to sort of help prepare the trainer of the kind of contents that the slides will have. हमने slides पे बहुत सारा लिख के information नहीं लगाई है because it becomes very visually heavy. तो वहां पे की पॉइंट्स है जो आपको गाइड कर सकते हैं, और बाद में there is also a guiding note at that each and every slide has. And third part of this will also be the reference material which will be provided for the courses. And at the end of each slide जहाँ पे हमने guiding note लगाए उसके नीचे भी कुछ और references हैं जो आप देख सकते हो for having more or adding more content to the kind of information that you need to share on the subject. Secondly, हम highly recommend करते हैं कि कितने भी जो slides है वो contextualize हो in the local example by using local example, local images, terms of references, definitions. तो यहाँ पे ये जो 3 symbols है वो बहुत important है जो आपको slides पे बार-बार दिखेंगे, which indicate that you could either borrow from the regional definitions or you could, put just. So pictures of the regional context could be inserted and local practices can be used. So as we go along, I will also elaborate the use of these symbols, but this is how the slide deck has been currently prepared for the trainers. So today's module is essentially 4 chapters. हम आज बात करेंगे importance of early childhood development. ये सारी चीज जो हो रही है that is for the young children. So what is the importance of the development at this age, which is called the early childhood? We will also talk about infant toddler caregiver neighborhood. What is an infant toddler caregiver? How do we define that? Several definitions around that. और वो उसका needs cities से क्या है, built environment से क्या है, और neighborhood जो हम बोलते हैं जहाँ पे रहते हैं लोग, छोटे बच्चे especially, वहाँ से क्या है. That is the second part. Third part is social and behavior change communication. This is to support the early child development and also to sort of reinforce the understanding of infant toddler caregiver network. And the last part is the framework. So framework has basically how these infant toddler caregiver neighborhoods can be implemented in the different cities, or all the details around that. So this is our contents for outline for the presentation today. We start with the first part, which is early childhood development. So यहाँ पे आप देखेंगे, again I have a symbol which says that there are some key information which is being shared. So this is definitions or key messages that are related to the topic which is provided in this part of the presentation. So healthy development, early years, particularly up to the age of 3 years, provides the building blocks for your different skills, education, educational achievements, but also lifelong implications such as health, formation of stronger communities. So what are the 3 parts that we want to understand in the early childhood development concept? Because ये topic है बहुत wide and बहुत scientific also. There is a lot of research which is going on in different parts of the world to support early child development. तो हमको आज 3 चीजें majorly समझना है. First is, when is the early childhood phase? कौन सा part of the life है जिसको हम early childhood phase में qualify करते हैं? This early childhood period encompasses distinct phases. कुछ parts है इनके इस stage के. Conception to birth, which is the first part. Birth to 3 years, which is पहले 1000 दिन बच्चे के जिंदगी में, which is first 1000 years, where a lot of brain architecture is getting developed. And then preschool to primary years, which is 3 to 5 years. So this is up to the period of time when the child is admitted in a school. That phase is considered to be early childhood. These are not very precise phases, but they can be useful categories to ensure that the development of the programs or the responses that you want in the urban environment and the cities can be sensitive to the specific needs of this part of the child, part of childhood. The second part is to understand what is really development. Development is some kind of an output, right? It is a continuous process of acquiring skills and the ability during this age period where skills and abilities are formulated. So some of these basic skills could be learning of languages or motor skills or social educational development. इस age में बच्चा खेल, everything is a playful. उसके लिए सब कुछ खेल है, चल के जाना, कुछ देखना, caregiver उसका जो संभाल रखने वाला है उसके साथ का engagement, all of that is learning. So there is no school, but he's or she is continuously learning through whatever interactions is being done. So the ability to solve complex problems in the life, communicate well, express the emotion and relationships, these are all parts of that early development, and that is why it is important. तीसरा जो पहलू हम समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं वो है, how does this development occur? ये कैसे होना चाहिए? This development is the result of the interaction between the environment and the child. Environment meaning जो उसका माहौल है physical और उसके आसपास के जो लोग हैं, both of that formulates the environment. So a stable environment is the one which is sensitive to the child's needs, their health, their nutritional needs, and is also very protective. It protects from the external threats, and this kind of environment gives an opportunity for learning, positive learning and interactions. So this is understanding of how the early childhood is defined. Scientific evidences will show that this early childhood period, which lays the foundation for the lifelong learning and development, is very much dependent on supportive relationships, positive learning experiences, which begin at home. But they can also be provided through a range of services. So बच्चा अगर स्कूल जाता है या हेल्थ केयर फैसिलिटी है, मतलब छोटे से हॉस्पिटल में या कहीं जाता है, आंगनवाड़ी में, तो these are the interactive relationships with the other adults that is also important for the development. All these places and all these people that they interact with is important for the healthy brain development. So if I just take a minute to elaborate this healthy development, you see that early childhood years is a time of great opportunity, but it was also a time where it causes a great risk for the development. So children's brains are built of every second they are being constructed in this early phase as they interact with the environment. So in a few years of life, it is said that more than 1 million neural connections are formed in every second. और ये जो रफ्तार है डेवलपमेंट की वो लाइफ में और कभी नहीं आती है. इट इज ओनली इन द फर्स्ट 1000 years of the life, 3 years of the age, when this pace of development is there. So it is very, very critical phase for understanding brain development. So this scan here that you see, this compares the brain activity of 2 toddlers. छोटे दो बच्चों के ब्रेन्स का स्कैन है. More colorful scan on this side shows that there is a healthy development. जब यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं कि सारे connections अच्छे से मिले हुए. And such the other thing that the other scan that you see with जहाँ पे white circles हैं, तो वहाँ पे you see that there are some kind of gaps in the connections that have been formed. So this is a signal of persistent neglect, that the child has experienced persistent neglect. So this is part of the brain has not developed, and when these areas remain underdeveloped, the child's ability to regulate behavior, problem solving skills, these are severely compromised. So this is the effect that this has on the brain development of the child. Now, to understand the significance of early child development, we can talk about 3 types of stress responses. So, बच्चे के लिए stress का मतलब क्या है और उसके responses कैसे हो सकते हैं और उसका effect क्या हो सकता है. So, 3 तरह के responses होते हैं, and which is also the type of stress and its effect. So, how to cope with some kind of adversity? ऐसा नहीं है कि कुछ भी तकलीफें नहीं आनी चाहिए. कुछ तकलीफें आना और उससे डील करने के लिए जो एबिलिटी है डेवलप करता है बच्चा, that is also important. So this is how to cope with the adversity that a young child would face. So it's important to distinguish amongst all these responses into sort of 3 parts. पहला जो हम बताते हैं वो है positive stress response, which is normal and essential part of healthy development, right? This could be the examples. This could be a first day of school. बच्चा जब पहली बार स्कूल जाता है या नए केयरटेकर को देखता है या फिर वैक्सीन लगवाने जाता है. These are like small examples of the brief exposure to stress, but this is important because it allows these incidences to sort of briefly increase the heart rate and then also elevation of the hormone levels, but then they are sort of stabilized because they have their parents around. वो उनको देखते हैं तो उनको मतलब लगता है कि there is not such a problem. So this ability to cope up with the stress is a positive stress response. दूसरा है tolerable stress response. अब ये जो है, this alerts the body of the child, and it is to a little more degree. This could be, loss of some loved relative or some kind of natural disaster or witnessing a crime or some kind of injury. तो ये है जो दिमाग में काफी लंबे समय तक रहता है. If this is time limited and it is buffered by healthy relationships with adults around them, this can help the child to adapt, and the brain and the other organs recover, and it might not otherwise have some damaging effect on the body. But the third level is the one which is toxic stress response. Here, when this occurs and it is strong, frequent and prolonged adversity children face, then such physical and emotional, these Examples of this could be some kind of physical or emotional abuse, or neglect from the caregiver, or even mental illness of the caregiver, or violence witnessing in the family or in the surrounding. So these are the prolonged these would have prolonged effects on the response system, and hence they are considered to be toxic. Just elaborating this through a few other slides and understanding. So अगर फिर से आप देखेंगे तो यहाँ पे you will see a symbol which is saying this is a key information that needs to be elaborated. So toxic, these kind of toxic stresses that we just discussed, they have damaging effect on the learning, the behavior, and the health of the children. The term ACE that you see here, this is Adverse Childhood Experiences. This is an acronym for this effect. And it is referred to some specific kinds of adversity that the children face at home or in the environment around them. So various forms of these again could be abuse, neglect, or household dysfunction. And this can lead to related issues and diseases, mental diseases or illnesses as well. तो वी कैन अंडरस्टैंड, इसको हम समझ सकते हैं कि अगर एक कार का इंजन आप बहुत लंबे समय तक, एक वीक तक आप अगर चालू करके रखते हैं, सो इट इज द इंजन इज रेव्ड अप फॉर अ लॉन्ग पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, देन द इफेक्ट दैट इट वुड हैव ऑन द इंजन. सो लंबे समय तक अगर ऐसे स्ट्रेसेस फेस करता है बच्चा, सो देयर इज अ प्रोलॉन्ग इफेक्ट ऑन द हेल्थ ऑफ द चाइल्ड. नाउ नेक्स्ट वी वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट what can we do to help mitigate the effects of ACE, adverse childhood experiences के को save करने के लिए what are the ideal approaches. So one of the approaches is to prevent the need for all level of services. So we can reduce the stress, sources of stress in the lifespan of the child, especially for the early childhood phase. Where the basic needs like food, housing are, if they are addressed, then the stress levels are lower. Then if there is violent relationships or community crime that is happening, this is all your physical environment. If you have supportive response relation in the relations, then very good. So if there is a parent caregiver who is around, they can bring down this stress. So this is how the stress can be mitigated. इसको हम कम कर सकते हैं. Over and above this, most importantly, the conducive physical environment, which is safe, which is green. There is a presence of the services such as play areas, education, good healthcare. All this could help mitigate the effect of the stresses that the child faces. And it can also, there could be if they are provided well in the neighborhoods, that could be mitigated as well. That is why the importance of the environment for the child where they are growing up. So one of the easy way to understand is also to develop a resilience against. So resilience against toxic stress. हम इसको एक सीसो के जैसे इमेजिन कर सकते हैं, जिसमें एक साइड पे वी हैव ऑल द नेगेटिव आउटकम्स एंड एक साइड पे वी हैव पॉजिटिव आउटकम्स. पॉजिटिव आउटकम्स कुड बी द सपोर्टिव बिहेवियर, द प्रेजेंस ऑफ सर्विसेज फॉर द चाइल्ड. Negative outcomes being the stress that they are exposed to, like I said, abuse or neglect or poverty or less attention from the caregiver. So it is able to balance. इसके लिए एक गेम भी है जो इसके क्या कहते हैं गाइड्स में हमने रखा हुआ है, which is called tipping the scales. Unfortunately आज मैंने देखा कि वो it is not open for use today, but I'm sure tipping the scales एक ऐसा गेम है जो you can play with the participants, which will help them understand this more. This is on the Harvard website that can be referred. All these references are given in the notes. So this is how children face a different kind of exposure to stress, और क्या हो सकता है environment में, cities में, और child केयर के कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स, सो इसको बैलेंस कर सकते हैं. So this is also another easy way to sort of understand this early child development and how the city and the caregiver are closely knit with the early child development, and hence we use the word toddler, infant, toddler and caregiver together as a unit. Again, यहाँ पे आप देखेंगे there is another symbol which is sort of a checklist. So this basically we are trying to say कि अगर ये programs implement होते हैं in the cities, तो उसके लिए पहले what are the identified challenges that are already there. Service delivery is one of the biggest challenge, जहाँ पे regulations है जो these typically constrain the departure from conventional practice. कि एक garden दे दिया and you know एक बहुत दूर एक hospital है, that's about it. So we don't have regulations that can mandate that within the use of the toddler and young child, you have the selected services which can have a positive impact. So this can be done by connecting different kind of practitioners, parents, or even scientists who are working on the program development. And that can be an environment that could create thinking around the different approaches of having these programs. Second is policies. The resource allocations currently that we see in our country, they rely only on the documented effectiveness of the opportunity that is available. So new policies that can be incentivized for small scale pilot studies or pilot interventions that can change, you know, uska effect देख के एक mindset change हो सकता है, which is at a very low cost. But currently the policy has that shortfall. And also in research, there could be different approaches for rather than going at predetermined study designs and fixed protocols of, for example, peer review and all of that. There could be other ways of engaging some kind of preliminary, sharing some kind of preliminary finding from small researches that can really help this aspect. Okay, going on to the next section. Infant, toddler और caregiver किसे हम बोलते हैं, और infant, toddler, caregiver neighborhood ITCN वो क्या है? This section we are trying to elaborate that, and we will also take up some kind of interactive ideas to see how much understanding we have about this group of people. So first some definitions, again like you see the symbol here on the slide. ये definitions again localize कर सकते हैं, जो language है like you know mother, father, neighbors, these are all the caregivers, तो इसको local language में बता सकते हैं. So infant, toddler और young children क्या है? First of all, let's छह साल तक के जो बच्चे हैं, those are this age group. They are further classified into infants, which is 0 to 1 year, toddler, which is 1 to 3 years, and young children, which is 3 to 6 years. तो ये हो गए बच्चे और उनको क्या बोला जाता है broadly. Caregivers may be from any background. ये हो सकते हैं कोई भी age के या फिर कोई भी लोग जो बच्चे को surround करते हैं और उसको support. उसका जरूरी नहीं है कि हमेशा माँ के पास रहता है, हमेशा नेबर के पास रहता है, केयर गिवर के पास रहता है. So this can change over just in one day. A child can be with 3 different kind of child caregivers. So caregivers can be family members, neighbors, sometimes also you know Anganwadis or creche caretakers that the children go to. And we normally say that caregivers literally come different sizes and shapes. Like यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं कि कभी पिता है जो on his way to work is trying to drop the child to you know some creche or आंगनवाड़ी, तो caregiver हो सकते हैं. Elder sibling can also be a caregiver if he is elder and you know enough old enough to take care of the child, young child, तो वो caregiver हो सकता है, या फिर आया और या जो भी आप caregiver जो hired caregivers हैं वो भी हो सकते हैं. So these can really come in different sizes and shapes, like we said, but they can be different kinds of caregiver, and this is why it becomes important to sort of build and maintain healthy infrastructure and services close to where the young children live, because literally through the day they witness lots of different types of environments around their house, and also they come in contact with different types of caregivers. So this we are trying to understand that who is a toddler, infant, and who is the caregiver. Now, why should we focus on this age group? India is considered to be one of the youngest countries, meaning we have about 10% of population of the age of the children who is between 0 to 5. So young children are like a big component of our population, and there'll be even more percentage of population as they keep growing. But more importantly, a majority of this population is living in cities. And it will increase, this proportion will increase over the next decades of the amount of children living in the cities. So investing in this age group or part of the population and helping them build sort of capacities to participate in the future of the growth narrative is undoubtedly, it can be the best investment for a sustainable future. Already developed countries have proven that how this is a win-win situation when you have growth narrative and children become a part of it from the start of their lives totally. So this narrative around growth is very important. It's a national conversation now. A lot of initiatives the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs is also having around focus on the young children. So that is why they become an important component of our society. Now, what is an what is an infant toddler caregiver neighborhood? How do we define a neighborhood? It can be a neighborhood that can furnish a rich world of experience around, like you can see, आप देख सकते हैं बच्चे कितना absorb करते हैं जब देख रहे हैं वो क्या है उनके आसपास. So it can be very imaginative. It can have opportunities of adventure, and this really nurtures the creative life for the children. So a neighborhood that is located in the center of the city, like where the children are living, but it still can link the children with natural world, with good some design choices, and it also allows them to sort of have become witness to some kind of wonder of ecosystems that they have, and it can instill a caring for the earth, stewardship like we call it, and this can actually last for the rest of their lives. So a neighborhood, which is the environment where they live, of engaged, very curious, happy, jumping children, will connect also parents to the different strangers in public spaces when they come together with the children. And this is where a sense of trust or a community building can also happen. So this is why in the next modules, we are going to focus on and elaborate a lot on how these kind of neighborhoods are planned and implemented, और कैसे change हो सकते हैं जो families के requirement है उसके around हमारे public spaces, how they can be changed to make them infant, toddler, caregiver friendly neighborhoods. So I'll stop here and we'll take a short poll of the participants. Yes. Okay, so just a little break. If the participants could use Mentimeter on their phone or devices, and you can just scan this or enter the code to access the poll. Hepzibah, is this possible to do it through Mentimeter?
Yes, ma'am. So what we all can do is, you have the Google Lens, right, in your phones. Everyone, आप सबके पास Google Lens है आपके फोन पे. I think सबके फोन में ये फीचर होगा. स्मार्टफोन की तो है ही. तो आप ये स्कैन कर लीजिए अपने कैमरा से और आपको वो लिंक दिख जाएगा मेंटीमीटर का. नहीं तो आप गूगल पे अभी जाके www.menti.com पे जाइए और उसमें एंटर कोड का ऑप्शन आ रहा होगा आपके पास. आप ये कोड जो आपको विजिबल है वो डाल दीजिए, 58633641. ये आप एंटर कर दीजिए. तो दोनों ऑप्शन है आपके पास ये पोल एक्सेस करने के लिए. अगर किसी को कोई डाउट या कुछ क्वेरी है तो आप प्लीज पूछ सकते हैं कि ये एक्सेस कैसे करना है.
To the Mentimeter. Rest of them, if they have some queries, please post it or request. We will help you out in Mentimeter.
इंस्ट्रक्शंस का ये वेबसाइट खुल तो गई है लेकिन कुछ इंस्ट्रक्शंस आ नहीं रहे मेंटीमीटर की वेबसाइट पे.
वो नहीं अब
मैम वो आएंगे अभी. जैसे सारे लाइव कर देंगे स्कैनिंग कोड को, मेंटीमीटर के पीपीटी को, तो आपको दिख जाएगा. अभी सारे मतलब जुड़ रहे हैं उसमें, तो इसलिए आपको शायद विजिबल.
ओके.
जी.
शशांक, हम जा सकते हैं ना क्वेश्चंस की स्लाइड पे अब.
yeah 10 of them are
पहले हम देखते हैं कि आपके मुताबिक एक छोटा बच्चा जो हम बोल रहे हैं 0 तो 2 साल से वो शायद चल सकता है, तो 2 to 5 3 to 5 के एज का बच्चा रिक्वेस्ट नहीं करेगा कि मतलब उठाने के लिए बोलेगा नहीं या रेस्ट के लिए नहीं करेगा, तो एट अ गो एक टाइम पे वो बच्चा कितना चल सकता है? आपको क्या लगता है कि कितना लंबा 2 मिनट, 5 मिनट, 10 मिनट, व्हाट इज द टाइम दैट यू थिंक वो चलेगा? बाद में बोलेगा अभी मुझे उठा लो, या फिर अब नहीं चल सकता हूँ, या मुझे बैठना है या कुछ. ओके. तो काफी लोगों का एक्सपीरियंस भी रहेगा पेरेंटिंग में, तो यू फील दैट 5 to 7 मिनट्स बच्चा चल सकता है और उसके बाद नहीं चलेगा. So this is, I think, all of us mostly menti.com also Hepzibah, अगर menti.com पे भी ये कोड डाल के खुल जाए. Okay. And we have one other question also. शशांक, या तो ये अगर हमें लगता है कि 2 मिनट चल सकता है या 5 मिनट चल सकता है या 10 मिनट चल सकता है बच्चा, तो कितना डिस्टेंस कवर कर पाएगा उनके पेरेंट्स के, केयर गिवर के साथ, दोनों साथ में चल रहे हैं हाथ पकड़ के, तो कितने दूर जा पाएंगे इतने टाइम में? 1 किलोमीटर चल सकते हैं, 800 मीटर तक जा सकते हैं, या 500 मीटर तक जा सकते हैं?
आई थिंक इसमें 200 मीटर का भी होना चाहिए. अकॉर्डिंग टू मी वो 200 मीटर से ज्यादा नहीं जाएगा. हेलो.
हाँ जी, हाँ जी.
हाँ, मेरे ख्याल से इसमें एक ऑप्शन और होना चाहिए 200 मीटर का. मेरे ख्याल से वो 200 मीटर से ज्यादा नहीं जाएगा.
जी. So we can note it down. Shashank, we can have one more option later. Okay, most of us सबको लगता है कि 500 मीटर भी ज्यादा है, जैसे मैम बता रहे हैं। तो 200-300 मीटर इज व्हाट और मैक्सिमम 500 मीटर इज व्हाट एवरीबॉडी फील्स। उससे ज्यादा बच्चा नहीं चल सकता है। ओके, थैंक यू सो मच शशांक, I can share again. Okay.
Just one request to all participants, just please be logged in into this multimeter on your mobile. So we'll come back to this after some more slides. So further presentation of 190 would continue later. Thank you.
Thank you, Shashank. All right. So, तो ये हमने देखा। अभी वॉकिंग रेंज नॉर्मली दैट वी हैव इज फॉर अ स्मॉल चाइल्ड, जैसे मैम बता रहे थे 200 मीटर से ज्यादा नहीं चल सकते। सो इन विद इन दिस वॉकिंग रेंज आपका जो डे केयर सेंटर है, प्री स्कूल है, या डेली नीड्स जो केयर गिवर बच्चे को लेके जाता है सुबह दोपहर को, मिल्क, सब्जी, small playground, grocery shop, this all should fall under that range. More elder children can actually just walk, maybe 3 years and above can walk a little more, which is 400 meters. And then even 4 to 5 year old kids can walk a little more. तो प्राइमरी स्कूल है तो थोड़ा दूर हो सकते हैं, वहां चल के जा सकते हैं, पार्क्स हो सकते हैं वो। नाउ व्हाई आर वी लुकिंग एट दिस, बिकॉज ये डेफिनेशन हम यूज करते हैं नेबरहुड डेलिनेशन। क्या नेबरहुड है उसको समझने के लिए हम हमेशा ये वॉकिंग रेंज डिस्कस करते हैं। सो छोटा बच्चा जो है विद द केयर गिवर इज ओनली एबल टू वॉक सो मच without getting totally distracted, tired, or getting not being able to walk more than this. So this is अगर हम infant toddler caregiver neighborhood समझना चाहते हैं तो उसका पहला principle is that what is the range where these people can walk. तो destination जहाँ पे भी जाना है ये हमेशा घर को हम सेंटर में रख के सोचते हैं। Sometimes the other method of understanding also could be that the facility, which is the healthcare or daycare, could be put in the center, and we can see that what is the neighborhood around that. तो वो जो health center है वो कितने neighborhood को cater करता है. So this is another way of also understanding neighborhood. This ability for a curious and perpetually distracted toddler to navigate the city, जो बच्चा हमेशा उछल कूद करते हुए ये देखते हुए वो देखते हुए जा रहा है, तो उसका रेंज, उसको बोलते हैं हम टॉडलर वॉक शेड, इज ओनली अप टू 300 meters मैक्सिमम। एंड दिस इज द डिस्टेंस दैट ITC यूनिट, सो इन्फेंट टॉडलर केयर गिवर साथ में जो है, they will be able to walk in the Indian weather only for 10 minutes up to 300 meters. And this is how we need to plan our neighborhood. We need to provide for the services. All the things that are related to the neighborhood should be understood with this lens. Sorry, I think I went on mute for a minute. So, यहाँ पे आप फिर से जो सिंबल देख रहे हैं, that means that you can add local examples here. यहाँ मैंने दो तरह के local traditional neighborhoods का example लिया है. एक है मोहल्ला, जिसमें आप देख रहे हैं कि कैसे the people behave. They are very close knit. Everybody knows the other person. और एक example है गुजरात में जो होता है पोल, तो वहां पे एक ही कम्युनिटी के लोग रहते हैं, एक कास्ट के शायद कभी लोग रहते हैं. सो दीज आर आवर ट्रेडिशनल इंडियन नेबरहुड, जहाँ पे कोई डेफिनेशन करने की जरूरत नहीं है, और इसके अंदर दे आर वेरी सेफ. देयर इज अ सेंस ऑफ safety and security because the young children can easily play. There is not a lot of traffic which is going across. This is traditionally what we used to understand as a neighborhood. तो हम उसको मोहल्ला बोलते हैं या जो भी है. आप जब ट्रेनिंग डिलीवर कर रहे हैं, you can localize this into the regional context of what traditional neighborhoods can be called in that area of the country. लेकिन इसके अलावा जो planned neighborhood है, when the newer cities are being developed, ये चीज नहीं है. There is not much safety or there is not much even provision of such kind of spaces. So in planned neighborhoods, we have the ease of the children to play safely just outside at the doorstep is very very less. क्योंकि बहुत सारे threats हैं, बहुत सारे ऐसे aspects हैं जो नहीं allow कर रहे हैं बच्चों को just to play outside their house. Most of the time, parks छोटे जो what we understand them as tot lots, छोटे play spaces for small kids, they are not present. Again, here I have used this symbol. You can identify this kind of a neighborhood as a sector, if that is in some parts of the country is understood as a sector, or ward or town planning scheme. जो भी it can be a planned neighborhood. मतलब एक समय पे इसको plan किया गया, construct किया गया, that could be one neighborhood. Now within this you will see that there is housing quarters, housing societies which may have some facilities for playing, but most of the time it is not there. So this is the range at which we need to plan. So in the next modules we will see कि plan क्या करना चाहिए, कितनी जगह देनी चाहिए, कितने range of facilities आने चाहिए. But आज हम समझने की सिर्फ कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि इसका importance क्या है. तो पहले भी हमने ये डिस्कस किया कि ब्रेन का डेवलपमेंट बहुत फास्ट हो रहा है 0 to 3 years में. सो 90% ऑलरेडी 3 years में हो जाता है, उसके बाद में धीरे 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 बाकी का ब्रेन डेवलप हो रहा है. But that phase is very important. So this is your all the connections between the neurons in the brains are created. So when a child is deprived of, उसको जब नहीं मिलता है interaction which is stimulating, or it is not, the child is not able to have the neuron growth, and it is the development is radically stunted. काफी impact होता है उसका. So for the healthy development of the brain, the young child has certain needs from the city. Of course, there are needs of proper nutrition, immunization and all of that, but they also have certain needs from the city. Which are these needs? उसको सुरक्षित महसूस हो हमेशा, but caregiver के साथ, और जहाँ पे भी वो caregiver के साथ जा रहा है वहां पे भी repetition of supportive behavior. Whoever is taking care, there is a repetitive behavior, supportive behavior, and this is where we will understand how this supportive behavior is also important in the next segment. Spending quality time outdoors, इसका बहुत impact है on the child's development, and it is best if this space that they are spending time outdoors is green. So the fulfillment of these needs, अगर ये जरूरतें पूरी होती है बच्चे की, that will ensure that the infant adapts to the physical and emotional environment, and it ensures also its successful survival, healthy survival of the child. So this is this development phase is very intensive, and it can be slowed down later. It slows down later, but this is very important first 1,000 days of the life. That is why we are focused so much on the aspects and their needs from the city. Features of the local kind of context. So यहाँ पे ये आप symbol देख सकते हो. First of all, there is a need to feel safe. अब safety जो शब्द है वो बहुत individualistic emotion है. Safety is a different perception for everybody. So our environment where we live, which right now we are referring to as a neighborhood, that plays a big role in creating this perception of safety, right? The threat of physical harm or it, the threat ki accidents can happen or non-safety is a massive physical impact on women who are and also children who are in their care. Why? Because it leads to sort of anxiety, lowered immune system responses, and in children also a lowered capacity to explore and learn. Because हमने बात की कि ये बच्चा सिर्फ स्कूल में जाके सीख नहीं रहा है. This constant learning in the first phase is happening, constant recording is happening, and that brain development is happening. So physical safety of women and children are both go hand in hand, and it's not just directly that they meet with an accident or they are not safe. Why? Because young children take very good cues from whether the while they are exploring something, they are tasting something, touching something, it is a good idea by looking at the expression of the caregiver's face or the caregiver's bodily response. So if the caregiver has an anxious response, this is a huge deterrent from the toddler कि मैं यहाँ नहीं जा सकता, मैं ये नहीं कर सकता, मुझे नहीं करना चाहिए. तो हमारे cities में they are also perceived as unsafe, mostly for lot of areas for women and other caregivers at certain parts of the day. And these are the stressors from the built environment. Vehicle noises, and there is no lack of pedestrian safety while the caregiver is walking with the child. So वो जोर से हाथ पकड़ेंगे या कुछ भी, so that is a indication to the child कि ओ यहाँ पे कुछ डरने जैसा है. So this impacts the way the child would behave and engage with the environment to the next years of life. Second most significant event in the life of the small children are those that take place in their daily lives, and they take place repeatedly in very ordinary day-to-day ways. For example, what or how they are fed, their daily hygiene, the quality of air that they breathe, the water that they drink. These are also important, but what and with whom and how they play or engage with the physical environment is also very, very important. So responsive, playful, meaningful, and calming interactions with their caregivers, that gives them a perceived safety and also allows them opportunities to explore their surroundings through repetitive daily interactions and engagement with their caregivers and with the environment. So these can take place in their home, but they can also take place in the immediate vicinity at different stages of their life. And this creates a good foundation for different cognitive functions, sense of safety, having good future relationships, community cohesiveness, and all of this is through the physical environment. The other need that the child has from the city is to spend time outdoors. अभी pandemic में हमने देखा कि ये बिल्कुल गायब हो गया है, मतलब नहीं है, absent है, because बच्चे बाहर नहीं जा सके काफी टाइम तक. लेकिन बाकी टाइम पे भी हमने काफी, आपने देखा होगा कि सिटीज में बाहर जो बच्चे खेलते हैं उसका प्रोपोर्शन कम होता जा रहा है, consistently decreasing, and caregivers and parents put them in some activities through the day, so they are not really having to spend a lot of time outdoors, but that is very important for the development of the young child. So infant and toddlers, they need to regularly have a lot of time outdoors, and for young children this is also an opportunity to learn. So primarily they learn through their bodies, all the experiences to walk, balance, jump, climb, or even fall, and have adventurous nature to sort of combat with the future risks is also developed in this time. So we are constantly telling them, oh, don't go there, don't do this, because safety caregivers ko hi kam lagti hai, to children also take the clues like I explained. So it becomes very difficult, challenging for the children, and they don't spend time outdoors. Now, to help the small children learn or strengthen their capabilities to take more risk and be more adventurous, these are all skill developments that are required, and they can be done through the outdoor play. Now, it's important to remember here that छोटे जो बच्चे हैं, they get easily stimulated and overloaded. तो उनको छोटे छोटे डोज में ये exposure चाहिए. So if you say Sunday go one day for the entire day, I will take the child to the forest, and that is done. That's not really going to benefit them a lot. A constant, everyday, repeated behavior is what helps them to learn these things. And then outdoor spaces that children are, ये बहुत ही पेड़ पौधों से भरी हुई होनी चाहिए. Children really need green spaces. Why? This is not only so like I said, एक दिन forest में जाके आया और वो children के लिए बहुत it is very beneficial. That's not how it is. They need constant contact with nature, natural materials, and consistent exposure. So they learn a lot from this, different kind of competencies developed because of their, close contact with the nature. And in the early years, as well as when we are older, like the slightly older children, they need to feel free to use their imagination to play with natural material. So this is where they have skill development. But हमारे parks में क्या होता है कि there are 2 swings, 2 slides, and that's about it. There are no trees or no natural elements. So they need to explore the nature, try, climb a tree, leaves that are there, and they run into these leaves, or lawn, grass. So these are all the different, or just stones to just build something. These are the imaginary plays that, the role play that they do, that is more beneficial for the growth of the brain. So next we have, again, you see the symbol that this is a checklist. If we understand that ये सारे needs है बच्चे के from the city, what are the challenges? क्यों नहीं मिल रहा है वो बच्चों को ये cities में? So there are a lot of challenges that the children face. Key risks to the ITC health are various parts of some kind of various cycles of attitudes about the public spaces, public realm, and they often start with a car. So we will try and understand the different challenges affecting the neighborhoods in Indian cities very quickly. And these are both global, like everywhere we have, such as there is a lot of focus on automobile, and human scale is not addressed. So ye already global problems hai. But they are also unique to the Indian context, like the maintenance and cleanliness of these spaces is a big challenge. So we can quickly look at what are these challenges. Again, here आप रुक सकते हैं और डिस्कस कर सकते हैं कि what according to you are the challenges that are caused in the urban environment by the cars. So instead of straight away discussing, you could stop here. So you would get a lot of responses which are true in any Indian city, that the cars occupy a lot of public space. A lot of places reserved for a park are also taken up by cars. So all the Indian neighborhoods, this is a typical picture that you will see. You could, of course, again contextualize this with local pictures. So Indian neighborhoods do not have, first of all, any speed limit. So that is the biggest threat to the child. They cannot independently go outside and play. Even the caregiver walking with a small child would feel threatened because of the speed of the vehicles. The other problem is that there is a prominence of car. हर जगह कार दिखती है घर के बाहर, which is the main reason कि parents बच्चों को बाहर खेलने नहीं जाने दे सकते, because there is all these spaces taken away by the car. and there is no space for the footpath. So in many places you will see कि car already park की हुई है on the footpath. Cycle track है, उसके ऊपर भी car park की हुई है. So it doesn't leave any safe space, footpaths for the children to walk, and this is not deemed to be safe at all. In other not so well-to-do neighborhoods, impoverished neighborhoods, children are just walking on unsafe streets, and this leads to high number of road accidents and deaths as well. So these are all the issues that our cities are car-centric, and there is no space left for the children to play or even have opportunity to develop as a space or play space. Again, here you see the symbol कि ये हम अपने local context में आप इसको explain कर सकते हो. कोई park को क्या बोलते हैं वो, that can be translated in the regional language. What is shown here is a curbstone. Now this is a photograph taken in New Delhi at the eye level of 95 centimeter. 95 centimeter आपको हमने अर्बन 95 ओरिएंटेशन में इनिशिएटिव के बारे में बात किया था, तो उस टाइम पे we have already discussed कि 95 centimeter is a height of an average healthy 3.5-year-old child. So इस height पे अगर आप देखोगे तो काफी सारे problems नजर आते हैं. First of all, we have the curbs which are very high. So it is these public spaces in India are invariably designed for non-disabled adults, which means that young people, young children, disabled and elderly, they find it very difficult to navigate. And this challenge is particularly there in roadsides or footpaths. If you want to climb, it is not possible. Also entry to the parks and public spaces. So equal access to streets and public spaces would require what? It would just simply require some minimum footpath height, or it could be clear and free of any obstructions. Or one could have ramped curb stones that strollers and wheelchairs can climb. Basically barrier-free access to a lot of these spaces could be really helpful in allowing these children to go out and engage. The next challenge is, of course, poor access to public facilities. This picture is from Ahmedabad, where there is a land reserved for parks and gardens, and that is being already now given out to a private tennis club to sort of have their tennis classes. So what happens here is कि obviously everybody cannot afford, but the places which are meant at the neighborhood level to be parks and gardens, small children to walk to these places and play, those are taken away because the government finds it increasingly difficult to maintain so many parks. So here, this is another challenge, that the small, the small child and the caregiver is juggling a lot of bags and or holding on to the child only can walk so much, that we have already discussed. So in many neighborhoods, these urban parks or even walking to the school is a big challenge, and the comfortable walking distance or carrying the stroller kind of a distance for the caregiver and toddler is absent. So in these cases, child will either be restricted in the opportunity to play, or they will have no means to access this. The other challenge is also कि safety नहीं होती है. आप देख रहे हैं कि काफी बड़े दीवार है और communities है which are gated, so that doesn't provide a safe environment for the children. And also in the name of footpath, you many times have many barriers. So these are broken. Again, child cannot walk. This one particular example you see has a fencing also, which means the access to the footpath from different points is not possible. The surface is broken. So these are typical problems with the maintenance. And the last challenge is also that these spaces, if at all they are there, they are not really, there is some beautification as tokenism. थोड़े bench लगा दिए, थोड़े slides लगा दिए, 2 swings लगा दिए. तो explore करना, दौड़ना, भागना और जो growth and development for the child के लिए जो जरूरी activities है, वो बिल्कुल अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकते हैं ये पार्क्स एंड ओपन स्पेसेस. So at this point, I think because we are slightly behind the time, we will skip this Mentimeter. Is that okay? But one can sort of stop here and discuss with the officials that are being trained कि आपके सिटी में ऐसे कौन से challenges आपको लगते हैं जो ITC well-being को challenge कर रहे हैं. So we can take this as a discussion during the training. We can take now if somebody is willing to share your experience about your cities, also few points. But we may not navigate to the Mentimeter just to save time. पहले वाले उसमें हमने थोड़ा सा टाइम ज्यादा लगा दिया. Would anyone like to share this about this question? Basically, this is a placeholder for a good discussion with your trainees that what are the challenges that the urban officials face in their own cities, and this could be discussed at this point because we have sort of covered all the challenges that are faced in the.
एक क्वेश्चन हम ये पूछना चाहते हैं कि क्या किसी इंडियन सिटी में ये अभी आपने मॉडल की तरफ से कुछ डेवलप किया है और क्या ये पूरे शहर में करना, पूरे सिटी के लिए करना पॉसिबल है? न्यू प्लान्ड एरिया में तो आप ठीक है, नया कॉन्सेप्ट है, न्यू प्लान्ड एरिया में आप कर सकते हैं, नई आप कॉलोनी बना रहे हैं वहां कर सकते हैं, लेकिन जो पुराना शहर होता है या जो ऑलरेडी जो पूरा तैयार है शहर, उसमें पूरे शहर के अंदर ये मॉडल लाना क्या किसी शहर में पॉसिबल हो पाया अभी तक?
I think Hepzibah or KK may be able to answer this. Of course, पूरे सिटी में कैसे ला सकते हैं, that is our whole motive of this training. कैसे ला सकते हैं, धीरे धीरे करके ला सकते हैं. अभी तक पूरा सिटी इंडियन कंटेक्स्ट में ऐसा नहीं है, बट काफी प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं जहाँ पे ये सक्सेसफुली बनाया गया है. पुणे में है, भुवनेश्वर में है, जहाँ बड़े पैमाने में नेबरहुड्स को रीडेवलप किया है to suit the needs of infant, toddler and caregiver.
Yes मैम. So जैसा कि आपने कहा ये पुणे है और बाकी सिटीज में जहाँ पर अर्बन 95 इनिशिएटिव के अंदर काम किया हुआ है BVLF ने, वहाँ पर काफी कुछ इनिशिएटिव लिए गए हैं जिससे कि जो नेबरहुड है वो ITC फ्रेंडली उसको बनाया जाए. मे बी जब हम ITC फ्रेंडली बात करते हैं तो हम बेसिकली ITC फ्रेंडली सिटी की बात करते हैं, और ये जब सिटी तभी होगा ITC फ्रेंडली जब पूरे नेबरहुड होंगे. सो कुछ एक्सपीरियंसेस भी पहले शेयर हुए थे और मे बी बाकी जो कमिंग जो मॉड्यूल्स हैं उसमें भी और हम बात करेंगे कि बाकी सिटीज में किस तरह के इनिशिएटिव लिए गए.
जस्ट टू ऐड ऑन जो सर ने अभी बोला
हुआ है तो प्लीज कुछ वीडियोस की अगर शेयर हो सकती, जैसे केस स्टडी की तरह अगर कुछ वीडियोस शेयर हो सकती हैं कि किस तरीके से वहाँ डेवलप हुआ है, कितना बड़ा नेबरहुड है और कैसे उसको यूज कर रहे हैं बच्चे और क्या क्या फैसिलिटीज उसमें दी गई हैं, तो कुछ वीडियोस अगर शेयर हो सकें तो ज्यादा अच्छा रहेगा.
मैम जो बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस कंपेंडियम है जो ITCN ने बनाया है, जो 5 गाइडलाइंस बने थे उसमें से 5वां जो है बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस गाइडलाइन जो आपको शेयर भी हुआ था, उसमें केसेस दिए गए हैं कि कैसे इम्प्लीमेंट हुआ है. तो उसमें आपको एक एक लेवल पे एग्जाम्पल दिया जाएगा, इंटरनेशनल और नेशनल एग्जाम्पल्स. और मैं एक एग्जाम्पल लूंगी भुवनेश्वर सिटी का कि उन्होंने छोटा जैसे लैंड यूज जो वेस्ट लैंड होता है उसको कैसे जो स्ट्रीट्स को कैसे उन्होंने ट्रांसफॉर्म किया है जस्ट कि प्ले एरियाज बन सके, क्योंकि कई वेस्ट लैंड्स होते हैं एग्जिस्टिंग सिटीज में जो कि यूज नहीं हो पाते, बट उस वेस्ट लैंड को उन्होंने एज अ स्ट्रीट रीडिजाइन किया उस एरिया को ताकि बच्चे खेल सके. तो ऐसे करके स्मॉल एग्जाम्पल्स बहुत सारे हैं उस बेस्ट कंपेंडियम में जो कि हम देख सकते हैं, और फिर आप अपने सिटी ऑफिशियल्स को ऐसे डेमोन्स्ट्रेट करके बता सकते हैं. तो वो भी शेयर किया गया है और वो अवेलेबल है रेडीली वेबसाइट पे भी, बट हम फिर भी आपको दोबारा शेयर करेंगे.
मैम मैं इसमें एक एग्जांपल मैं देना चाहूंगी कि हल्द्वानी में, उत्तराखंड में जो हल्द्वानी है, वहां पर हीरानगर में एक पार्क पुराना ऐसा पड़ा हुआ था जिसमें ज्यादा लोग यूज नहीं कर रहे थे. तो अभी वहां के जो लोकल लोग हैं, वहीं के आसपास के जितने लोग हैं नेबरहुड में, उन लोगों ने मिल करके उसको एज ए चिल्ड्रन पार्क डेवलप कर दिया है. उन्होंने कहीं से सरकार से भी कोई मदद नहीं ली और अपने आप से ही डोनेट करके उसको बहुत खूबसूरत बच्चों के खेलने के लिए एक पार्क डेवलप किया गया है वहाँ पर। तो इस तरह से हमारी कुछ सक्सेस स्टोरीज हैं हमारे पास जो इस तरह से किया जाए। लेकिन अभी क्योंकि आइडिया पहली बार फ्लोट हो रहा है तो शायद इसको पहले अभी समझने में टाइम लगेगा, और हमारे प्लानर्स जैसे समझेंगे तो इस बारे में कुछ ना कुछ तो हम रास्ता निकाल ही सकते हैं।
ये
एक
ट्रेनिंग
और
का
सॉरी
इम्पोर्टेंस ही यही है कि हम ये समझे और सिटी ऑफिशियल्स तक पहुंचा सके कि इसका इम्पोर्टेंस क्या है, और अगर वो समझेंगे तो देन फिर इन टर्न दे कैन मेक देयर सिटीज आल्सो चाइल्ड फ्रेंडली।
जस्ट एक छोटी सी चीज और ऐड करना चाहती थी मैम। एक और चीज है कि ये प्रैक्टिस जो है हमें ऐसा नहीं है कि हम एक नई चीज बता रहे हैं या नया इन्वेंशन है। इट इज जस्ट एडिंग ऑन टू एग्जिस्टिंग प्रैक्टिस, मतलब जो हो रहा है, जैसे कि आपका देखने का नजरिया बस वो बदलना है, क्योंकि वी आर ट्राइंग टू इनकॉर्पोरेट ITCN लेंस, ITC लेंस, तो वो चीज है। ये बस देखने का नजरिया बदलने की बात है।
ओके, और हम ये 3 कोर्सेज में काफी डिटेल्स में डिस्कस कर सकते हैं कि ये कैसे हो रहा है, कहाँ पे हो रहा है, कहाँ पे सक्सेस स्टोरीज है, तो सब शेयर धीरे धीरे होगा आपके साथ, तो आप देखेंगे गुड एग्जांपल्स इन द इंडियन सिटीज। ठीक है, shall we go ahead? So this is a new term that is very important. We are just very briefly going to cover this social behavior change communication. तो जैसे हमने देखा कि केयर टेकर का बिहेवियर भी बहुत मायने रखता है बच्चों के ग्रोथ, तो ये बिहेवियर हम कैसे इम्पैक्ट कर सकते हैं और क्या इसका इम्पोर्टेंस है फॉर द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ द चाइल्ड. So this is important to understand the behavior that can improve the impact on the early childhood development, ECD जो हमने बात की अभी. So social and behavior change communication जो बोलते हैं SBCC, इसको ये भी बोलते हैं BCC, behavior change communication, या C4D आप देखेंगे कहीं पे, communication for development. This is an interactive process for any intervention with individuals or a group or a community to develop communication strategies to promote positive behavior that addresses the health problems that are faced with any age group. So this in turn provides a supportive environment which can enable the people to take initiative or sustain, even maintain and positive and desirable behavior outcomes. So it is a specific type of communication to impact the behavior of a specific kind of group of people. How is this different from conventional communication? अभी हम बात कर रहे हैं, मैं प्रेजेंट कर रही हूँ, ये भी एक तरह का कम्युनिकेशन ही है. बट SBCC जो है, that is actually a process of interactive communication, of course. बट ये स्पेसिफिक टारगेट ग्रुप को लेकर उसके लिए science is all about that. So it is the difference from regular communication is that जो भी ओवरऑल प्रोग्राम का इंफॉर्मेशन आपको बताना है, द डिसमिनेशन ऑफ द इंफॉर्मेशन, it is based on motivating the group first of all, then through problem solving and then planning for the solutions. तो ये 3 components हैं जो SBCC के अंदर we are considering that important. So it is more based in theory and it is also evidence based. So it will change group to group. There is no one way of communicating this. So these needs to be designed as per the program requirements and what is the existing data that is available. So analyzing the problem in order to define barriers and motivators to change. हम क्या क्या barriers है, क्यों नहीं हो सकता है और कैसे इसको change ला सकते हैं. These are all set of tailored interventions to promote some kind of desired outcomes. So social, this is one of the most commonly used models for carrying out a social behavioral change communication. It is called socio-ecological model. इसमें हम देख सकते हैं कि there are 4 levels of influence that interact to affect the behavior. So at each of these 4 levels, the influence, 4 levels of influence, there are factors that affect the behavior in a positive way, and they are called facilitators. And there are factors that affect the communication in a negative way, they are called barriers. So if I take the example over here, you see that there are the regulations which are not there, policies and regulations. There is not a proper leadership. Then these can all become, if there is a good leadership and there are good resources for services, these can become facilitators. Whereas some gender norms that don't allow a certain behavior, income inequality, exposure or access to different kind of technology could become actually barriers. So it is important to understand that एक कोई भी organization it is not possible for any one organization to do the communication at all the levels. So community level, family level, individual level, there are different kind of players or experts, and the coordination and partnership with these kind of different kinds levels of organization is necessary to operate at these different scales. So and just let me go to the next slide. It is the same thing. This basically what we want to understand is that there are different sectors in which early child. This basically across all these sectors, the positive behavior that can put children on a path of healthy and productive development, while the suboptimal behavior that can have serious effects, negative impact on the development of the child. So one example that we can discuss is that the specific behavior of parent or caregiver or even service provider like teachers or health care official for both the toddlers and the caregivers. So these caregiver behavior designed to have children psychological behavior. Some examples of this would be storytelling or singing or having some kind of activities or play with the children. Few examples to understand how early child development and SBCC are sort of related. We can look at few examples of some programs that have been, successful. Now here again you see that there is a symbol which says compare and contrast. तो आप अलग-अलग programs को यहाँ पे highlight कर सकते हैं जहाँ पे communication से कैसे impact हुआ in some of the early child development programs. So one program, for example, demonstrates the use of reminders and social norm setting, which doubled the number of parents who would spend time with the young child. The example is trying to elaborate what the example is trying to elaborate is how the service provision of a certain kind of space can impact the caregiver's well-being. So we understand that walking is the most reliable means of transportation for the caregiver. Now to encourage walking for the families or for an ITC unit with the baby and toddler, the cities can ensure few things. What are those things? Destinations are within the walking distance as we discussed. So if the services that are needed for families with young children are in the surrounding of a walk shed, then that can be easily done on foot. And caregiver should be able to feel safe to walk to these destinations. And more importantly, the routes can become destinations as well. So here, sidewalk can offer opportunities to play, explore, and the amenities for the caregiver to sit down or rest in between. So these also help improving the social contact between caregivers. So this is a typical example how the well-being of caregiver and their behavior can impact both the activity of the children and their better development. So these are also linked with the environment and the health of the children, early children. These are listed sustainable development goals. For example, the sustainable development goal 3 talks about the mortality rate, which can be, by the bringing down the ambient pollution, it can be reduced, so on and so forth. So here, localizing at the country level of already policies that are already existing, what can be done at the government level is, one is that we can adopt the WHO quality of air guidelines that can positively impact, the health of the children and hence, their overall growth, or even in the national land use plans or in the kind of investments that are done with reference to the WHO global action plan. So these are all the activities which are already being carried out in different countries, and how at the national level it can be taken up. And also the urban local bodies can directly impact the built environment, which is conducive to support early child development. So for example, enabling streets that are children friendly, or they enable independent mobility for children, that can be included in the planning actions. Like हम अभी बात कर रहे थे कि ऐसे parks नहीं है ज़्यादा, but these are the first steps that we are taking to sort of go in that direction already. So here, this is basically about the early child development and the social behavioral change. We can take a quick quiz and come back to the presentation. Shashank, over to you for sharing the quiz. Request everyone to go back to the Mentimeter where the questions are shared. First question is, which are the 3 core elements of social behavior change communication? हमने अभी देखा कि 3 core elements है: health, communication and social change, early child development, caregiver well-being and social change, or communication, social change and behavior change. Okay. The correct answer is what the majority has already given: communication, social change, and behavior change. So this is because this is a little bit of a theoretical topic. आप इसके end में एक छोटा सा quiz कर सकते हैं to just check how much have the participants understood. And there's one more question, Shashank. Okay. Yeah, you can maybe better read it on your device. Second question is, which of the following is an example of impact created due to change in communication? कौन सा example है जो communication strategy change करने से impact उसका हुआ? Increasing traffic signals on the road led to increase in use of road by 21%. Is that an example? Changing the default for opting in and opting out for learning a language, or exposure to the environment pollutants for the young children. That changing just a little bit of communication would actually change the numbers quite a bit and impact the program very positively. So these are the kind of interactive tools that can be used through the presentation to engage with the participants. Going back to the presentation quickly. Yes. We come to the last section, the very short section. We are looking at lastly infant toddler caregiver framework. Infant toddler caregiver framework essentially in case of an ideal, so ITC framework क्या है? ये जो है, it lays out a rationale for making improvements to the neighborhood and explains the objectives of doing so. So it is constituting of an overall kind of a strategy for urban toddler, infant toddler caregiver neighborhood. So what is the objective of such a neighborhood? An ideal ITC neighborhood कैसे होना चाहिए? It is where of course, the children and caregivers feel safe, but they also have, playful environment, green environment. So this is like a full circle of range of objectives. Now, these symbols, ये जो है, ये in the other modules, because they go across all the documents and they are tied to different documents, and I'll just come and explain that in a bit. Let's just very quickly understand all these objectives. First is the objective to be safe. Now, a safe and secure neighborhood, like I said, safety is a very different individual. Above all is to refocus on your vocabulary. So a walkable street could be a slow street. For pedestrians. Of course, comfort for users during day and night and through different seasons. But such a neighborhood is also a place that can limit the noise of the traffic and construction or surrounding noises. Or it will have a lot of trees. And we already understood कि बच्चों के लिए green क्यों important है, कितना important. So this can keep the greens can keep the stress levels low, and ITC include a calm and even it could give soundscape, so it could bar the noises during certain active hours. So ITC neighborhood can be biodiverse, and it can have excellent native plants, some animals, insects, and birds, and this is where you would have maximum opportunity with the natural material for the children to play. Accessibility, if we it touches on the threat of different types, like stray animals can come into a play space or a school space, and the idea is to make sure that there is a strategy in place for keeping all these unhealthy elements away, like waste or harmful sharp things should be kept away from the places where children's environment or play spaces are there. Flexible services like the one you see, it's maybe a preschool, and the area outside is used for different types of times of day to play. So flexibility basically means that everything from vegetable carts or small play areas in the neighborhood that exist, it can be used as a pop-up or a temporary kind of events. Such events could also be closing the streets temporary for vehicles, and these can impact the use of the public spaces as safe outdoor areas by the children. The other objective is that there should be a playfulness to the whole ITC environment. The less the distance between each of these, so play spaces are important within the 5 to 10 minute walk. But if they are at lesser distance, then you can accomplish the task of reaching there. You meaning that the caregiver can easily accomplish that, and that translates into lower stress, better physical and mental health, all the aspects that we have already discussed. So the neighborhood level zoning, which is done, can address something called clustering of destination. So if there is one area where you have grocery, but you also have a bus stop, you also have a milk booth, but you also have a small park where your child can play. So then you just it becomes much easier for the caregiver and the child there. And over and above all of these, the play spaces or the ITC neighborhood areas should be inclusive. So nowadays, the inclusive neighborhood also uses smart practices and procedures to ensure the quality. So a lot of cities have already in place these smart practices where one can give feedback of a place which is not clean. But these practices are they should be as much transparent to the people. At the same time, provide opportunity for people to engage, involve in the time when these places are being designed or planned, and also give feedback once they are done. So again, we can come back to a checklist at a glance that these are the objectives and how that it is safe, it is green, accessible, playful, and it is inclusive. So all these are again listed here just to go back and revise or summarize this whole idea. Now, the methodology of achieving the ITCN is what we will cover in the next modules. But just to give you a brief understanding, once we have already looked at the which are set, right? All these five. We called us we can sort of implement the guidelines. So guidelines are norms that cities can follow to make streets, parks, social infrastructure children friendly. And these guidelines are again informed by a document which is your policy workbook and the best practices book. So these both are again informing the design guidelines. So you see that it goes back into feeding into the service level benchmark. So once the design guidelines are there in place, cities can build these spaces, they can be evaluated and monitored, and then you go back again to service level benchmarking, which helps you understand how these objectives have been achieved and are being used or not. So this is a process that we will go across, and it is also important to understand what does an ITCN composed of. These are the elements, the neighborhood itself, which we talked about extensively today, but also parks and open spaces, urban services, infrastructure, and streets, most importantly. So where children live, where children play, where they learn, and then how they move between all of this. This will be our starting point for the next module tomorrow, and we will discuss how these services are provided. So what Hepzibah was mentioning, these are the core documents where we have discussed today the policy framework for ITCN, and we have said why is this important. So this has given us an overall strategy for the ITC neighborhood. What should the cities do? These can be done through indicator benchmarks, which are available through these two documents, best practices and evaluation and monitoring matrix. And how it can be done is what we will also discuss in tomorrow's module, which is the design guideline. So implementation of the ITC components and how it is carried out. Urban 95 initiative is behind all these frameworks, and it can be understood as the key driver for all these sort of course, not only the documents, but all the initiatives which are happening in the country right now. BVLF has commenced this since Urban 95 initiative in different cities to help the planners, urban designers, but also different city officials as to understanding as to how this work can influence the child development. So 3 lessons that are at the top of the Urban 95 initiative are that proximity matters. You have to have these services and these spaces at a walking distance. Second lesson is design for caregiving. It's not only about children, but it's also equally for the caregivers, and how looking after them will also decide where the children will go and how long they can stay, because the caregiver can be comfortable there. And the third lesson is think of babies as a universal design principle, because where you will see children and young children and caregivers, that could be a place which is safe for any other person to use at any given time. The focus areas of the Urban 95 initiatives are family-friendly urban planning and design, which includes planning, design, regulation of city spaces, land use, infrastructure and services, and the healthy environments for children, which includes improving air quality and access to the natural environment. And the 3 principles are data-driven decision-making, where the VVLF has always believed in making decisions backed by data rather than relying on intuitive or observations alone. Behavior science that we discussed in detail today, it is found that understanding this science behind caregiving and other human behaviors can really transform the scale of intervention and the design of the intervention itself. The last one being workforce development. Like we are doing right now, what we are doing is that thoughtful focus on training and well-being of the people, administrators, who will in turn carry out, they are the project frontliners and they can improve the outcome as a positive change over the long term. At the end of these slides, we have all the references from which with a lot of the slide decks and the guide notes. I think we will end with a last feedback on Mentimeter. And then we can take questions if there are any. So please give your feedback on the presentation which was made today, whether the contents were covered in depth and easy to understand or not. Shashank, we can keep a shorter time of maybe 30 seconds to close the voting so that we can. NIUA team, CRDF team is free to also feedback. And the next idea is to understand how would you rate the overall content of the presentation.
Ma'am, I think Ashok from SK has raised his hand. So also
We
take
can
the
take
question. Yeah.
We just finish the voting and take the question. Or we can. Shashank, is there one more question or this is it? Okay. Things that you enjoyed during the course. This input is supposed to be in words or keywords. Shashank, can you just help the participants with that?
Yes. It should be keywords. Yeah.
All right. I don't see anyone joining informative. Thank you, Manjuji, that you found it informative. Okay. So we can take Hepzibah, can we go to questions quickly? I know the time is up already, but I think only one, Mr. Ashok. Yes.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the presentation.
Hello.
So this will be again, I mean, in order to run through the material again, is there any format of printed material available with us, or will this be circulated to everyone, or is there any more that we can relook into the presentations?
Hepzibah, do you want to answer that? So the slides will be shared with the participants along with the reference material. Yes, Krishnakant.
Yes, yes, we'll share the slides along with the reference material to all the training agencies.
Thank you so much.
So the slides have notes, detailed notes at the foot of the notes of every slide. So you'll be able to have a reference of that. For most of the slides, there are extra references given on the slide notes itself, and also reference materials will be shared as well.
So may thank you for this very nice presentation and very informative presentation. So मैं इसमें एक पॉइंट थोड़ा सा हाईलाइट करना चाहूंगा नेबरहुड को लेकर के. तो हालांकि आपने काफी अच्छे से उसको इलाबोरेट किया. So जब हम नेबरहुड की बात करते हैं तो बेसिकली वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द एरियाज वेयर ITC interacts with external environment on a regular basis, and we can define neighborhood as an area around anchor institutes like institutes who are providing ECD services. That can be आंगनवाड़ी सेंटर, even crèche, even जो प्री प्राइमरी स्कूल है उसको भी कंसिडर कर सकते हैं. जैसा कि मैम ने कहा अभी कि वार्ड कैन ऑल्सो बी कंसिडर्ड एज ए नेबरहुड. इवन सम पॉकेट्स हैं या ब्लॉक्स हैं या कई जगह रेजिडेंट वेलफेयर एसोसिएशन ने अपने ब्लॉक्स डेवलप किए हुए हैं. इवन दैट कैन बी कंसिडर्ड एज ए नेबरहुड. तो बेसिकली जब हम नेबरहुड की बात करते हैं तो हमारा फोकस बस वही है कि जहां पर जो इन्फेंट है, टोडलर है और केयर गिवर है जो रेगुलर बेसिस पर जो बाहरी जो वातावरण है उसके साथ में इंटरेक्ट करते हैं.